A democracy didn't die in a day. It was hollowed out by crises, legal shortcuts, and a public told that emergency powers were only temporary. This is how a fringe agitator became chancellor on January 30th, 1933, and within 18 months, the unchallenged dictator of Germany. At the end of World War I, Germany was exhausted, humiliated, and hungry. In Bavaria, the political order collapsed first. On November 7th to 8th, 1918, Kurt Eisner proclaimed a free state in Munich. A few months later, in April 1919, radical councils declared a brief Soviet-style republic. Freikorps units, battle-hardened volunteers, crushed it within weeks. The violence left scars and a sense that the old rules no longer applied. Munich's beer halls turned into political theaters, smoky rooms, angry crowds, and a market for simple answers. In this world, the German Workers' Party formed, rebranding in 1920 as the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Its 25-point platform mixed nationalism, anti-Semitism, and promises of social renewal. The movement remained small, but it learned how to stage rallies, build a brand, and exploit grievance. It also learned how quickly attention could swing when fear and hope were packaged together. By 1923, hyperinflation shredded savings and trust. Banknotes were carted in baskets. Salaries lost value between morning and evening. On November 8th to 9th, 1923, Adolf Hitler and allies tried to hijack Bavaria's turmoil and march on Berlin. The beer hall putsch. The plan unraveled almost at once. Police fired, the march scattered, and the coup collapsed. Hitler was arrested and sent to Landsberg prison. The failure taught him a hard lesson. Stage a legal ascent, use the system's language, then bend the system to his will. Crisis cooled in 1924. The Dawes Plan restructured reparations, stabilized the currency, and unlocked foreign credit. Factories restarted. The Weimar Republic finally seemed to breathe. International agreements, such as the Locarno treaties, promised normalcy and a place in Europe. Yet stabilization rested on short-term American loans and fragile coalitions at home. Presidents leaned on Article 48 of the Constitution, emergency powers that bypassed Parliament, turning the exception into a habit. The economy improved, but the habit of rule by decree set a dangerous precedent. In Landsberg, Hitler dictated a manifesto that would be published as Mein Kampf in 2 volumes, 1925 and 1927. Many dismissed it, while the Golden Twenties dazzled with art, cinema, science, and nightlife. To millions, the future looked modern and bright. Yet the blueprint lay in plain view, a program promising national rebirth through one-man rule, racial persecution, and expansion by force. When Hitler's speaking ban was lifted and the party reorganized in 1925, the strategy sharpened. Joseph Goebbels honed a modern propaganda style in Berlin: posters, radio spots, headlines timed to the hour. The SA swelled into a street army, while the smaller SS cultivated an image of elite loyalty. These were not yet instruments of the state, but they made the party feel inevitable to audiences who craved direction. The storm arrived with the Great Depression. After the Wall Street crash of October 1929, credit dried up, especially the short-term American money that had propped up recovery. Shuttered factories and job lines returned with a vengeance. By the early 1930s, unemployment climbed into the millions. Coalition governments wobbled. Chancellor Heinrich Brüning ruled increasingly by decree. Austerity deepened the misery. Faith in compromise eroded. Street fighting between paramilitaries made politics feel like civil war in slow motion. At the polls, the shift was stark. On September 14, 1930, Hitler's party leapt to 107 seats in the Reichstag, an earthquake result that made it impossible to ignore. In the presidential race of March and April 1932, Hitler challenged the aging war hero Paul von Hindenburg and lost, but he proved he could command a national audience. 2 Reichstag elections in 1932 drove the point home. On July 31st, the party became the largest in parliament. On November 6th, it slipped yet remained on top. Gridlock reigned. No coalition looked stable without or against the extremists. Behind the scenes, conservative elites misread the danger. Former Chancellor Franz von Papen believed he could box Hitler in, use his mass following while moderating his behavior. General Kurt von Schleicher tried to play rival factions against one another and lost the initiative. Business leaders wanted stability. Many underestimated the price of buying it on authoritarian terms. On January 30th, 1933, Hindenburg appointed Hitler Chancellor. The move was legal within the Weimar Constitution. It also opened the door. Less than a month later came the shock that changed everything. On February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building burned. By dawn on February 28th, the government issued the Decree for the Protection of People and State, the Reichstag Fire Decree. On paper, it was an emergency measure. In practice, it suspended core civil liberties, freedom of speech, press and assembly, protections against searches and arrests. Police could detain without trial. The decree targeted communists first, but it gave authorities a free hand against opponents. Elections were still held on March 5, 1933. The regime used state resources, censorship, and intimidation. Opponents campaigned under constant pressure. Even so, Hitler's party failed to win an outright majority, which made the next step essential. On March 23, 1933, deputies assembled in the Kroll Opera House to vote on the Enabling Act. Communist deputies had already been arrested or excluded. Many others walked in through rows of uniformed men. Only the Social Democrats spoke openly against it, an appeal for law over fear. Surrounded by a heavy police presence and framed as a temporary necessity, the bill allowed the cabinet to pass laws without parliament, even laws that violated the Constitution. What followed was Gleichschaltung, coordination. Opposition parties were banned or dissolved. A July law outlawed the creation of new ones, leaving a single legal party. Trade unions were smashed on May 2nd and replaced by a state-run labor front. State governments across Germany were taken over and aligned with the center through appointed Reich governors. Civil servants, judges, and teachers were purged for political and racial reasons. A propaganda ministry created in March centralized control of culture and the press. Radio and film delivered a single line. Federalism was dismantled step by step. State parliaments were dissolved. Governors appointed from the center. And in 1934, a Reconstruction law effectively ended Germany's state autonomy. Internationally, the regime sought legitimacy to buy time. A concordat with the Vatican curtailed Catholic political activity in exchange for institutional protections. High-profile ceremonies projected normalcy at home and reassurance abroad. At the same time, the security apparatus hardened. Political police and the SS widened surveillance and detention. Concentration camps, improvised at first, became tools of routine repression. The goal was clear: crush organized opposition, atomize society, and make alternatives seem pointless. The party's paramilitary wing, the SA, expected a second revolution that would reshape the economy and sweep away old elites. That prospect alarmed the army and conservative backers whose support the regime still needed. The conflict was resolved with violence. Between June 30th and July 2nd, 1934, the night of the Long Knives, the leadership ordered a series of killings against SA commanders and other rivals, including figures outside the party. The Purge signaled that power flowed from the top and nowhere else. The army noted the message. In exchange for loyalty oaths and promises of rearmament, military leaders accepted the new order. On August 2nd, 1934, President Hindenburg died. 2 weeks later, on August 19th, a plebiscite confirmed the merger of the presidency with the chancellorship. The title became Führer and Reich Chancellor. Oaths bound officials, soldiers, and civil servants to the person of the leader. Institutions bent, dissent went silent or underground. A republic that had promised rights and representation had been converted into an instrument of one man's will. This is the pattern to remember. The road to dictatorship ran through ballots, decrees, and legal-sounding language. Fear of disorder justified extraordinary powers. Once normalized, those powers hollowed out the Constitution. The story from November 1918 to August 1934 is not only about one man's ambition, it is also about a society's vulnerabilities, economic shock, political fragmentation, the allure of simple answers, and the temptation to trade liberty for the promise of security. When a system depends on trust, it can be destroyed by panic. When laws are designed to limit power, they can be twisted to expand it. When the public is told that extraordinary measures are temporary, history suggests a question: temporary for whom and for how long? Germany's democracy did not fall overnight. It was dismantled in stages, each explained as necessary, each defended as lawful, each paving the way for the next. Understanding that sequence is not just about the past. It is a warning written in the grammar of emergencies. If this video added something to your understanding of history, please like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more.